this video, I want to talk to you about how critical it is to understand the precise role and function of each part within a multi-track recording. Now, this is a process that really should have begun at the very beginning of your creative process when you were writing a track. But it's also at Mixdown stage, it's really important to just refresh your memory about the parts that you have, the role that they play, and the functionality within the track. And here's why. If you're not clear on exactly what the role of the part is, then the chances are you may end up choosing a type of processing that's quite inappropriate, and if anything is going to do the part a disservice rather than maximizing its potential within the track as a whole. So with that in mind, I've created a little example here with 3 parts that are all quite distinct from one another. And what I want to talk to you today about is understanding that each of these parts has its own key qualities. So let's just listen to the 3 together. Now you can hear, and you can also see on the screen, that they're all quite distinctly different. At the top here, we have a top end rhythm. And when you're listening to that, just think about the qualities that that rhythm possesses. I mean, firstly, it's a rhythm. It has momentum. It's driving the track forward. It has a propulsive quality to it. It also occupies quite a high pitch within the frequency spectrum. So with that little bit of core knowledge, we know, for example, that we want to make sure there's no real sonic content happening in the, say, sub-bass area. We also know that we want that kind of propulsive quality to be preserved. So we don't want to process it in a way where, for example, we smother it in reverb and turn it into something that's quite washed out and quite textural. The beat-free pad here has none of that like transient energy, and by that I mean the kind of attack points that you get with percussive sounds. This is much more the kind of sound that's not providing any momentum, but what it is doing is it's providing texture and mood. And you can imagine this being quite a recessive sound, so it kind of sits back in the mix a little bit. And you can imagine maybe the application of some reverb to this being quite a nice effect in just filling out some of those kind of stereo spaces within your mix. And then at the bottom here, we obviously have our kick drum. Now the kick drum is obviously percussive, and it has the same sort of role in a sense as the top end rhythm, but it's nowhere near as busy. So really what the kick drum's doing is it's just keeping that kind of metronomic time, but its role within the track is also to support everything else that gets layered up on top of it. And in order to do that, it needs to fulfill a number of objectives. You know, it needs to be punchy, it needs to have enough bottom end to it, but it doesn't want to swamp the bottom end. And then, you know, as you bring your bass in, and we don't have a bass in this example, but as you bring your bass in, you're going to want to make sure that there's enough space for the bass to occupy in and around that kick drum. You also want to make sure that the kick, if it's supporting like 30 other parts or whatever, that it has a good sharp like transient attack. So that's the very beginning of the sound, like you hear the sound of the beater rather than it just being a kind of smudgy, subby sound, unless that's specifically what you're going for with your track. But just in looking at the way these 3 parts differ and how their role in the track is quite different, perhaps you can see how we're already being steered into different directions in terms of the kind of processing that we might look to maximize these sounds. The other thing that's really, really important to bear in mind is how these sounds operate in relation to each other. So as an example, if you listen to this top end rhythm, you can hear in that open hi-hat sound that it's actually really, really broad stereo. But the clap in that sample is very much straight down the middle of the mix in mono. So that means there's this real kind of almost a concertina effect where there's a push and pull of the stereo field coming in and out whilst this sample's playing. Now if you imagine that's replicated across multiple different layers of percussion across your track, it can be quite disorientating to listen to. The other thing is that we know that we have this big washy beat-free pad sound happening. So do we really want our attention when we're listening to the track to be drawn to the sudden width of the stereo open hi-hats? We probably don't. So then we're being steered with the top end rhythm into making decisions along the lines of, well, perhaps we draw in the stereo field a bit, perhaps we try to sort of consolidate this sound in one space rather than it feeling like it's coming from a number of different sources, which it probably is. You know, whoever's put this loop together has probably found a hi-hat from here and a clap from here, and each one's already got its own inbuilt, in-baked kind of reverb processing. And also each part has been treated in a different way when it's been recorded or when it's been mixed. So these are all things to kind of bear in mind. Like, these are all key qualities to listen to when you're trying to figure out the specific role of each part. So just go down the list of like frequency spectrum, stereo field. Does it have in-baked reverbs? Is it there to create momentum, or is it something that's lush and textural and designed to sit in the background? Or is it a lead sound that you want to have right front and center because it's really grabbing people's attentions? That's all from me today. I really hope you've got some value from this video. And if you have, then like and subscribe to my channel for more content in a similar vein. Please also check out my website at mixingmasteringmentoring.com, where I offer a whole range of mixing, mastering and mentoring services and house all of these tutorial videos in one place. I hope to see you there.